Some anxiety, some nervousness, every emotion but happiness, because it's just sorrow that my sister's gone, and to think about the way she went and to have to sit through the trials, listening and seeing all the different descriptions of how she went, is knowing that that's going to be heart-wrenching.
Linda Frickey's sister there. Emotions are running high, will likely overflow now that the trial's been put on hold. It's a move that came as a surprise to the family and the jurors who were at criminal court yesterday for the first day of the trial. Those jurors were all sent home before 10 o'clock yesterday morning after the state Supreme Court stepped in and issued an order stay, a stay of order. Court proceedings will be on hold until the state Supreme Court, rules on appeals issued last week by the defense attorneys. Here with more on that and some legal perspective in this case, which has been fraught with controversy. Tulane Associate Professor Maybell Romero, thank you for coming in. First of all, this case, number one, it's a very gut-wrenching emotional case. When you have a case like this, and it does kind of exemplify all the teen crime we're seeing in town, but you have a woman dragged to her death, her arm is severed. I mean, it was horrific.
It is an incredibly horrific set of facts, and I think that's why it's captured a lot of attention here in New Orleans as well as around the country. And
it also, has people arguing the fact, should teens be tried as adults? And in this case, the community said yes.
It certainly seems to have.
And the DA did too.
And the DA did too, even though he did have some campaign promises earlier saying that this is something that he wouldn't do, but then seemed to very promptly start doing that once he got into office.
Yeah, and it did take a case like this to really, open a lot of people's eyes on this, for the argument of juveniles and crime, especially when you have a horrific case like this.
I think so, and I think it's really important to have that debate because it's certainly not something to be discounted, the way that victims feel about this and the way that a lot of communities feel about this, seeing this. But I also think that there are lots of concerns with regard to, well, how mature are these children? How much could they possibly have foreseen that this would have been what happened when when stealing this car? And you see some of those sorts of concerns being addressed by some of the competency hearings that are occurring or will occur in future.
Well, and let's look at it. There were 4 teens involved. One of them was not going to go to trial yesterday. Mm-hmm. She was deemed mentally incompetent, at least for now.
Yes.
So she's under evaluation. The 3 other suspects who were about to start trial, there had been fighting back and forth between among the defense, the DA's office, and the judge. The judge said that no DNA or fingerprint evidence could be admitted after both sides asked for an extension to try and look at more of the evidence.
Yes.
But then that was reversed.
And it's very confusing because usually what happens is that things like forensic evidence and DNA evidence, they're very important cases like these because they help to place these children who have been charged in a particular location. You've got video, but it's not exactly the clearest video, so this is something that the prosecution definitely wants in. But the defense needs to have a chance to be able to investigate it, to really check out the reports and check out whatever physical evidence there might be for themselves before trial. So it makes sense initially that if the judge were pushing the timeline that she'd be wanting to exclude that, but now she's made this change where it's like, okay, now it's going to go in, and what are we doing with the timeline? And I think it's led to a lot of confusion as to why there's been, for lack of a better way of putting it, this flip-flopping on the issue.
Well, because the defense did not have time to go over the evidence and fully vet it. So you understand their side. The Supreme Court apparently did too, and they stepped in.
And it's really unusual for them to step in on something like this. Usually the way that a trial is timed and the way that the events unfold are very much, usually controlled by a trial court. They have a great deal of discretion in deciding what evidence comes in, what evidence stays out, when the trial starts, and if it's going to get continued or not. So this is a really unorthodox step that I really haven't seen in other cases.
And I would assume for the prosecution that DNA and fingerprint evidence is extremely important to place those 4 teens actually at the crime, even though a couple of them, their parents turned them in.
Yes, but I think what you see a lot in these days is lots of jurors who watch TV. Maybe they watch CSI, maybe they watch Law and Order. So everyone expects some sort of, oh, is there a fingerprint? Is there blood? Is there something else that will place them there? They expect this forensic evidence and some sort of scientific approach to it. And otherwise, if they don't have that, sometimes they've expressed in other cases a little bit of distrust of the veracity of what the prosecution is presenting.
And in real life, it does not work like it does on CSI and other programs.
No, if only it did. You see on CSI and they take some evidence and they put it in a computer and you have, some sounds and some graphics and suddenly it tells you this is what happened. And it certainly doesn't work like that. There are oftentimes limitations on what you can do with biological evidence and forensic evidence. You've got someone else testing it, and there are reports that need to get out to everyone.
Yeah, and from shows like that, Law and Order, we see a crime committed, the investigation, and then the trial done in an hour. And I think people have that kind of mindset. It should run pretty quickly in court, and it does not.
And this is certainly not going to be one that runs quickly, Eric.
No. All right, thank you very much. According to attorneys, the potential jurors will be returning to the courthouse this morning and remain on standby for the Supreme Court's decision. We'll be closely following this and all the other updates. We'll have the latest for you on our newscast and, of course, online and our social media. Peyton?